Morning, everyone. Welcome today. Welcome. My name's Tara Gray, and I'm a representative that's been invited to do some training with you today. And also, you're part of a crash dummy subset of people in that we're trialing and starting to implement a new framework in our organisation. And we've invited you here today to not only contribute to developing this framework, but also to be give us some feedback on the very beginning stages of the training that we're going to be providing to all of our staff and our extended stakeholders in our organisation. So thank you so much for being here and being a part of this. I want to start just with a acknowledgement. We're standing on Geringer ground today. I just want to acknowledge all of our Aboriginal ancestors past and pay my respects to all the Aboriginal people here today and all the leaders to come. Okay, so we're going to be talking a little bit about cultural safety. Oh, before I start, I might just say major event happened in our mob over the weekend, Koori Knockout. I'm still excited because the mob that I've been supporting for the last 6 years has won. Yay! So well done, Walgett. So excited. Every other team on the grand final weekend lost, but Walgett brought it home for me on Monday. So you won't see me lack a smile today. Firstly, as you know, we're talking about cultural safety in our organisation, and it's really relevant because over the weekend it was brought up. There was questions about the welcome to country that occurred at all the grand finals, and it was actually beautiful to see that the attendees at both the AFL grand final and the NRL grand final actually spoke with their behaviour, and they really embraced the welcome to countries that occurred there. So I know it's a tough time with this voice thing going on, and there's a lot of misrepresentations there. So hopefully we're all thinking about this, cultural things, and how do they affect us. So hopefully you walk away from today understanding a little bit more of our perspective, and coming to a new place. That's what we're hoping for. And let me just say, I am an Aboriginal person. I'm from Darug country, Gumragal, Tongara mob, near the South Creek area. I have a lived experience with my ancestors, my family being involved in the stolen generation. I want to say, and I come into this teaching as a life experience as a carer and having experiences with the agencies that we work within. So it hasn't always been positive as an Aboriginal person. And uniquely for me, some of the cultural safety I experienced was not great at all. So please do not judge Aboriginal people by what they look like. Don't judge their experience by their lack or their non-lived experience. Many of these things are beyond our control. So nice little introduction that I didn't plan for. Anyway, let's this is the first time through, so I hope you'll all be patient with me. So what we're going to do today is look at the needs of our service users, who they are, and why we need to consider cultural safety in our area. We're going to be looking at developing our cultural safety framework and the steps that we have undertaken and the steps that we will continue to take. And then we're going to do have a little look about some Aboriginal perspectives and the area that we live in, specific to this area of the Shoalhaven. Okay. So let's start with I'm going to bring you a bit closer. Let's bring you in a bit closer. Just to get your mind started. All have an attempt to read that, and I'll read it for you. Your brain is so powerful that it can read sentences with mixed up words as long as the first and last letters are in the right place. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. And what you probably noticed as I read that initially I was tentative and didn't fit in with what my expectations to read. And as I moved along, I became more and more fluent and more comfortable with seeing that differently. And that reflects what we're going to do today. So sometimes you need to see things from a different perspective. How are you going? All right, meeting the needs of our users. So let's start by looking at what our service is. So we sit under the umbrella of St. Saviour's, who was a member of the Anglican churches. And, I want the bottom one first. So we're involved in this intensive therapeutic care model, which is a service that helps children and young people who are recovering from the most severe trauma and neglect, abuse or adversity in their lives. I believe most of you are youth workers, so you're very familiar with this. Give me a show of hands who's been involved. Right, yeah, most of you have been involved. So ITC provides safe and stable accommodation for young people, usually over the age of 12 years. The child that I've been connected with who's in this model, and I'm an authorised ITC carer, she's actually has been in this model since she was 8. So it does stretch outside of the normal. And it provides, I won't read this, it provides for an intensive or an interim support system to try and assist young people who have become dysregulated or showing some really tricky behaviours, to actually give them intensive interjection with the hope of getting them either back to their kin placement, their biological placement, or a normal foster placement. So usually they're only in a child's life for 2 years. So they're previously known as residential care. In our organisation, even though they can be up to 4 young people in the households, mostly they are one-on-one because of the intense behaviours. So let's look at this intense... I'll just go back if I can work out how to go back. No, I don't know how to go back. I'm just going to stay out of it. So what I wanted to notice back there was that why is cultural safety in this model really important? So what statistics tell us is 45.9% of people in out-of-home care children between 0 and 17 are Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. So, and of course their extended family who are also involved. The other point was, what was the other point? Can I remember? That the current Aboriginal placement principles, which is that Aboriginal kids should be placed with Aboriginal family. Very hard to meet those because there's so many Aboriginal kids in care and so few Aboriginal carers. And the last thing is that Aboriginal agencies, the non-Aboriginal agencies that are forced to take over the management of Aboriginal children, they have very few Aboriginal staff. So sorry that I didn't talk about that when it was up. So who are the stakeholders in our organisation? We have our clients, who are the children. They're aged between 0 and 17, and what are their needs? They need a safe and happy home environment. They need reduced impacts of the trauma that they've experienced to help manage with their symptoms that they display, i.e. their behaviours. And we need to meet a wide spectrum of health and mental health needs with them, and provide an adequate cultural identity. We also need to maintain those positive family and kin connections. Now, most of you are youth workers, so you too have needs in this space. You come with a range of ages, a range of cultures, a range of life experience, and a range of training and capacity. You also come with your own values and your own cultural biases. Unfortunately, that's very hard to separate. We are our upbringing and our own values. So your needs are to strengthen your individual capacity, to develop deeper agency, understanding of the challenges that you face with in your job, maybe to have a voice in that space, and for agencies to provide continuity in your youth work with clients. Now, I want to thank everyone here. We got this information by your engaging in your feedback that you did prior to this coming today. So we thank you for taking the time to complete that. And we tried to get a consensus between you. Of course, our other stakeholders in our space are biological families, extended kins, and previous carers who have been involved in the care of these children. So they're maintaining, some of them are maintaining ongoing relationships, and some of them we need to support through the cessation of a relationship. We need to make sure their need is that we manage them sensitively in a highly disempowered and a highly emotive circumstance that they're sitting in. So being sensitive. All right, cultural safety. Why do we need to think about it? So just a picture which always displays more than any amount of words I can speak. Happy clients makes everyone's job easier, and it's not about having an easy job, but we all want to see the clients happy, the happiest they can be. So why do we need to consider cultural safety? Well, unequal power relationships and inequities continue to exist between the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people and the dominant non-Aboriginal population. And there's been great efforts to address racism and discrimination through policies and legislation, but it's clearly that they remain systemic across the wider community and our out-of-home care sector. Cultural safety is a fundamental human right. It involves feeling safe in our identities and our ability to have our needs met. Both government and non-governmental agencies are required by legislation to provide a safe workplace. And if we do not invest resources to improve cultural safety in our workplace, we will not be able to improve the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's well-being in the out-of-home care space. And it's a significant barrier within our services, the complete nature of our services. Feeling safe in identity is the first step to impact the lives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people positively. So it involves both the creation of an accepting environment to initiate a relationship and develop respect and empowered relationships as we move into deeper interaction in these spaces. If respect is the first step, then communication is the second step, listening. What does the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people communities need to feel culturally safe? First, we need to ask them. We need to be authentically engaged in the design, delivery and review processes of all parts of this service. And this is why we're starting to develop our cultural safety framework. And which brings us to the 3 domains that we're looking at in our cultural safety framework. So the first one is we're going to create a culturally safe workplace and organisation. So that's a physical setting, plus the way we run our organisation. So it involves our policies and procedures and evaluation methods. The second one, and I'll just read through these briefly, you've got it in front of you so you can read through it a little bit at your leisure after this event. So, but we always also need to consider that Aboriginal people, to feel valued, need to have self-determination. So we need to think about changing our workforce and our workforce practices, building the ability to hear, and of course, as we listen better, the Aboriginal contributors to giving us a voice in this will become stronger. They'll feel more comfortable in providing what they value if we value what they're telling us. And lastly, we need to develop our leadership and our levels of accountability. So this is not just going to be a tokenistic process of let's do a framework and put it aside in the corner and then we can say we're culturally safe. We have to be have leaders who want to drive this forward and continue to improve it in everyday practice. So how is this going to work? Well, we start from unlearning what we're currently doing and going into a new phase of learning, some new strategies, some new ideas, applying it in our day-to-day management and our day-to-day lives to see how it works, reflecting on, does it work? Can we improve it? What can we do? That becomes embedded, but we're going to go in this model of continually learning, because we're not going to get this right the very first time we look into it. So it's about challenging what we're doing, challenging all our currently held assumptions and seeing what we can do better. That's what our learning model is going to look like. So for us, how are we going to break this down? Let's break it down into very manageable steps. So the first thing we need to do is expand our knowledge and understanding of Aboriginal perspectives. Okay, what's important to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in this space, we need to know. And how are we going to do that? We're going to establish an advisory group. So we want this advisory group to give us a wide range of Aboriginal representation. So this is what we're looking at doing for our advisory group. We want to have 2 executive staff. We want to have 2 community leaders from and we're going to approach the local Lands Council and attempt to get some representatives there. We're going to have 2 client representatives. We're going to have 2 Aboriginal carers who've worked with us. So clients being children or ex-clients might be a better way. You know, we're not sure how that's going to, obviously they're going to have to be mature-aged enough to give us some feedback. But we're using an extensive amount of feedback in our evaluations anyway, because we do get those in each of our yearly reviews. We do try to get our clients' opinions on how they're dealing with not only their placement but their management and the decisions that we make for them. We'll go on. We also want some local service providers, Aboriginal service providers, to be represented. So here in our region, Shoalhaven region, we have Wilminda, we have Kulingudi Aboriginal Child and Family Centre, and the Shoalhaven Aboriginal Multi-Centre Outlet, who are willing to provide representatives for us. Even though our aim is to have the same representative each time, realistically, if somebody cannot attend, that we will have a representative from their organisation. So what are we planning to do? As I said, create a culturally safe environment. So when we look at our environment, it's not just the office. Our environment is every environment that a child is placed in. So making sure those are culturally safe is a big task. The process by which we will get those recommendations from our advisory group, what a culturally safe environment would look like, and then we're going to review them looking at staff, client and other stakeholder feedback. So this isn't about setting up a benchmark initially and just running with it. We have to have this constant feedback of what's easy to implement, what's not easy, how can we make it easier, that sort of thing. So we also want to assess all of our programs, policies and procedures and bring them in line to culturally safe models. So that's a big task, going through all the documentation within our organisation and making sure they are considering cultural safety within them. So that's going to take a bigger chunk of time to get that completed, and we will prioritise our documents. So any recommendations, again, we're going to our advisory group for not only the prioritisation of the documents to be reviewed, as they're going to be reviewing them as well. So we're going to bring this to our next AGM, of course, and ensure that everybody, all our stakeholders are involved. So this is going to include, this actual component will involve staff training and feedback sessions. And as we've done with you, we'll be seeking your feedback before, during and after implementation. So it's going to be a very open, we're really encouraging everyone in the organisation to get involved in sharing what their experience is. So what we're actually going to start to become involved in today is cultural competency training, which we've identified we need to include in our staff induction, but also yearly review and training updates, because knowing what's going on in community in our area is really essential to interacting sensitively in the space. And again, we're going to be using our feedback models to ensure that the implementation of that is going along quite well. So, any comments about the framework that we're hoping to implement? Anything at all? Thank you for your feedback. All right, so as I said, we're going to start by looking at our Aboriginal, trying to reframe some of our current thoughts. Now, I'm hoping this video will work for us. So, Shoalhaven area, the land we live on, is it going to work? Yes, hopefully. Oh, it's not a touch screen, Tara. So used to working with iPads.
We acknowledge all Aboriginal people of the Shoalhaven, the Jeringer, Wundi Wandandi, Wadi Wadi, Yuin, Wurweri, Tomikin, Murramuri, Budawang, and Aboriginal members of the Rosebery Park and Wreck Bay communities, and value their long, rich cultural and spiritual connections to the Shoalhaven area. This is evident in the stories and ceremonies, the natural landmarks and the sacred objects embedded in the landscapes and waterways throughout this region today. As you journey through the Shoalhaven, absorb the beauty of the land, its magnificent landscapes, spectacular waterways, and abundance of native flora and fauna. Travel thoughtfully and respectfully, remembering the footsteps of the ancestors who walked this land before you and those who will follow.
My connection to country is because everyone who's ever made me who I am is in this earth.
It's all about sharing with my children, with my family, and with anyone else that's interested in our culture. It's a corridor for our people, and it's been used for thousands of years.
This place, this whole area, especially the land behind me where the sea meets. This is where my family brought me when I was little and right through my teenage years. To teach me about the area, to teach me about my people, to teach me about our resources.
It goes back 60,000 years plus. But my connection is now, here, today. No one owns land. We belong to it. From the land we come, there we shall return.
it's important that our connection to country goes beyond ourselves. We go out of our way to look after the mother, to be thankful. To be thankful for everything we hold, everything that we need to see our life.
Aboriginal history, I believe, belongs to all Australians. Aboriginal culture should belong to all Australians. So by us sharing our knowledge of this land, we can continue the longest living culture known to humans.
Feel them old people when you hear this certain part of the country here means a lot to me because I've been coming here since I was a little boy. So it's a powerful thing and it's been here since the beginning of time.
This is a little gift from Narrawangadu. If you look hard enough, you'll always see magic. She got some sand underneath her belly and she started to secrete a pearl. And what did she make? She made a parrot to tell the world that she was other things before she was this.
We need to have a different value of the land, and we can do it together. We can do it side by side.
Everything that was ever gifted, it was all come from the land. So when you are finished with it, you pass it back to the mother. You hand it back to the land.
Connection to country to me means life.
Connection to country is based around belonging, being who you are. If you're connected for the song lines of the language.
Awesome, beautiful video put together by the Shoalhaven City Council, and that's available online. So in my reference page, you'll see a reference to that if you want to view that again or show that to anyone. But what I want to reflect on is, you know, what did we notice in that video? What did we see? Yes, some beautiful land. What a fabulously magnificent area we live on, absolutely. We noticed they spoke about language, yes. Part of their country is their language. And we're very blessed to live in an area where the restoration of language is occurring. And a lot of kids are learning it in the schools, which is fabulous. Vincentia High School has a very deep program running there, so that's fabulous. Other things. Songlines, yes, songs and ceremonies are an important part of country. Yeah, thank you, great comments. I just want to add that not all Aboriginal people get the opportunity to live on their country, so they still can develop that sort of relationship to the country they live on, still accepted in community, but the deeper connections are where their ancestors live, but there can be unfortunately those things, let me see, don't always occur. Oh, we don't want to do that again. Here we go. And what I've done on the next page, they don't always occur, you know, life is a bit messy, essentially, so we don't always get the beautiful opportunity to return to live on land, but I know myself returning to land and walking on the land, there is something special about doing that. Here's some of our beautiful landscapes in our area, and I want to just talk about something. Did any of you notice that one of the gentlemen was speaking about land? He talked about it. He gave it a different name. Did any of you pick up? Yes, mother. And the relationship that we have with land is mother. And in fact, the word we have for land in here in Durga is Minga. Minga. Thank you, Trish Towers. I'm off country, so I respectfully asked someone on country to share that with us. So Minga, same name for land as for mother. That deep connection that you have for your mother is the best correlation that you can have to how Aboriginal people feel to the land, whether it be their own country or, you know, other other Aboriginal land that they are residing on. Right, look, I don't want to spend a lot of time on the history of the Shoalhaven. I do want you to really absorb this. So I'm going to get to some important points here, but I'm also going to provide you a document to take away and look into. There's more if you need it. But let's just do an overview today to get you started. So here in the Shoalhaven, which essentially extends from Berry down to just south of Bateman's Bay, the land, and to the mountains in the west, and of course the sea in the east. The land we live on was first sighted by Captain Cook, and he named it St George's Head. That's in the Jervis Bay area, in honour of the day it was sighted in April 1770. He called Point Perpendicular Longnose, again in the Jervis Bay region. That's the first time white people sighted the land. In 1791, Lieutenant Boehm named Jervis Bay in honour of Admiral Sir John Jervis. The track was surveyed in 1811. Alexander Berry came to the area and started to clear and develop the area into pastoral regions that they could give as land claims to white people. This area became a trade route because it was a very strong bay. They built a lighthouse there. I did write that in the 1860s. So it was used as a port that they could transport what they needed back to Sydney town. And so what we now know as the Wool Road was actually the old trade route to bring things, to ship them up. So the things were coming in from Braidwood, from all the areas up in the pasture lands above the mountains, to send them to Sydney. And that's pretty much the history that we learn when we're at school. That's the history of our region. But as we all know, Aboriginal people have lived in harmony with the land and waters for 60,000 years or more. And so the history does extend beyond that. The people who live here are a saltwater people. They identify by where they live. The land holds a unique distinction of being at a boundary region for two neighbouring peoples, the Dharawal to the south and the Yuin, who extend all the way down to the Victorian border. So that we're two coastal people groups. Now the Jerinja and Wondiandian people live within the current day Shoalhaven region. I know in the video that she mentioned quite a lot of them who just sit on the boundaries and extend beyond the Wadi Wadi and the Dharawal. Anyway, so because we're a region area, it's a place where a lot of trade and ceremonies occurred. They came to intermarry with other clans, and it was a very busy area. But I just want to acknowledge that there is a bit of conflict in identifying this land, because the Yuin claim that their nation extends all the way from the Victorian border all the way up to the Crookhaven River, which is it's just south of the current day Nowra. However, the Jerinja people who are located in this area, and they're mostly located in the Greenwell Point area of Nowra, they claim that the nation didn't actually exist. This concept of nations, where we group 12 tribes all residing within one nation, didn't actually exist back in those days. Now, I'm not sure why this difference in thought occurs. I really don't know. Perhaps it's to do with land claim issues, which as we go on will identify that the Jerinja people were involved in the very first land claim in the 1970s. But I don't think it matters. I refer to this as Yuin land, but I also acknowledge the Jerinja people lived on this land. The language spoken here is Durga, and Durga does extend all the way down throughout the Yuin Nation. But as someone from a Darug person, there are so many similarities to the language you spoke up there, you know. Bora, our hello greetings are very similar. So many. Gari, like there's so many similarities. It was noted in a journal from Frenchman Derville in 86, and his full name's there, that when he came there were beehive-shaped huts covering with grass and marine plants, so quite clean, spacious inside that could house 8 to 10 individuals. And you know, there is a lot, I don't know if any of you are familiar with dark emu and the concept of that's challenged the hunter-gatherer lifestyle that all Aboriginal people did actually engage, that they did actually have more permanent structures, and this is one region that did have permanent structures. Lovely comment that went with that is that evidencing a degree of intelligence on the part of these savages that to this point I've not seen. Lovely. So I'll make no comment on that. So culturally significant places in our wider region are Beecroft Peninsula, Mundawa, Mount Kulangadi, and Lake Woolloomboola. So we're going to look a little bit more detail at those significant places. Wondawa is the northern headland of Jervis Bay. It is sacred as it's considered the Dreamtime birthplace for the 13 tribes of the south coast of the wider Yuin Nation. Much of the peninsula, though, has been used by the Defence Force since the 1800s. It's currently used as a weapons range, and as such, there are some completely restricted areas which allow no access, and some that have restricted public access during times of war games that you cannot access them. And as weapons areas, there's a lot of, what do they call it? There is a big risk involved in accessing it because of munitions that haven't exploded and the risk of that. So from the time Alexander Berwick came, they rounded up the Aboriginal population and moved them to a small settlement in Wreck Bay. Syphilis and smallpox decimated the population there. Very few survived. Wreck Bay still exists there, and there was a land rights battle. A lot of Buderi National Park has been returned to Aboriginal management. And the current census, 2016, says that Wreck Bay, 152 people reside in that still ongoing community, and with restricted outside access to that community. So what are some of the significant events that occurred in that region? So this year, there was a $22 million payout because the Defence Force have negligently allowed PFAS chemicals from their firefighting foams to leach into the surface water and the groundwater and the soils. Over about 4 decades, that's been going on. As you go on the area, you notice signs warning you, do not drink the water, do not swim in the water. So how that has impacted their community is huge. Talking to people who live on Wreck Bay, they identified that there's a cancer cluster that's been occurring on that area with young people. They're just losing mob, incredible rate. Young people getting brain cancers. It's just terrible. It's just terrible what's happening. And they link that to this Defence Force issue. The second significant event is that $45.1 million was recently pledged to do a capitals work program to fix the disrepair of the community council's residential housing stock. We might see this as a positive thing. Oh, great. But the reality is that they're currently living in substandard accommodation. This is a promise that $45 million is going to be injected into the area, but as with a lot of government policies, they do take a long time to come about, and sometimes they don't come about. So currently, if we want to read the opposite of that, they're living in substandard. A lot of it's going to have to be knocked down. Some will just be upgraded, and it allows them to then enter into ownership style leases again. But they're living in these houses currently. Oops, sorry. The second sacred area we're going to look at is Kalangati, which is a sacred site where they took their dead, and they believe their spirits of the dead joined their ancestors. So it's a very sacred area. Parts of the Kalangati mountain were returned to the traditional owners in 2011, and the surrounding areas are national park land, a lot with Aboriginal management, handed over to Aboriginal management and leased back. So Kalangati Mountain is a very sacred site. And Lake Wallumbilla is south of Culburra Beach. Lake Wallumbilla sits very close to Crookhaven River. It is a very low crossing that you can walk across, so that when those boats came into Jervis Bay, you could actually walk and cross at Lake Wallumbilla to go further north. As I said, it's a large lagoon with an intermittently closed access. So it's just a fabulous wetlands that attracts a wide variety of animals, birds and fish. So for the Aboriginal people of the past, it's a hunting ground. It was an eating ground, really rich in gathering what they needed, but still to this day used by the Aboriginal people. There is what's the name of that? There's a mission. We'll go on to it. Still out that way, Roseby Park Reserve, that is out near Orient Point. That was the site of one of the first. Here's a picture here of the Aboriginal housing. Actual, albeit tin shacks, really quite substantial housing provided back in the 1900s as the Aboriginal people was sort of segregated from their wider lands to this area. The other significant area that we hold claim to, not something to boast about, is that we are the birthplace of the Stoller generation in New South Wales, the very first establishment of a children's home that housed the stolen generation kids. It was operating from 1908 to 1980. Yes, 1980. And was run by the United Aboriginals Mission that worked directly with the Aboriginal Protection and previously the Aboriginal Welfare Boards and taking children who were forcefully removed. Now, the children only stayed there until they were 10. They were considered time for them to go out to work then. So they were sent into domestic service, the girls, and the boys were sent out to work. The Narra Lands Council actually uses some of these buildings. It's a heritage site now. But sad places for our mob. And that's it. That's the end of my first presentation. Of course, it's not the end of learning about the history of the region, but it's just a taster for you to understand some of what I want to say is these deep hurts, what we notice, these things stem from Aboriginal policies and as an agency, even though our agency is a non-governmental agency, we've got to appreciate that a lot of the hurts that were done in past generations and even this generation continue to happen in child removal are perpetrated by the agencies. So the mistrust that we Aboriginal people display to our agencies are big and hopefully understandable in light of knowing a little bit more of this history. So I'm going to ask you to reflect on some of these histories, the taking away of the land, the taking away of the children, not being able to have your sacred spaces, not being able to access them where their ancestors were laid to rest. All huge things in the that inhibit reconnection of Aboriginal people with the white people. But what I hope that you got out of the video that we played was the absolute commitment of Aboriginal people to walk forward from where we are together. And in Welcome to Countries, I think we hear that very strongly. Coming together, moving forward. Does that involve voting yes for the voice? That's what you've got to decide. What do we need to do to walk ahead together in trust? Major time, significant time for Aboriginal people at the moment. So please, as you consider this, consider it thoughtfully. As I said, here are a lot of, I'll be providing a lot of additional information here. And I'll just note the Shoalhaven City Council reference is the video that we just watched, Walking on Country, and it's an absolutely beautiful, publicly available video. Please use it if you would wish. Any questions before we go? So as I said, I'm going to give you a feedback form to fill out, so we can all log in and do that, but I'll stop this recording right now. I want to thank you all for being a part of it, and if you too would like to give some feedback, there is a site listed here that you can provide some feedback. Thank you, and Wallawani.